your school system there in the US had a lunch system, right?
Yeah,
Where lunch is free. We adopted that here in the Philippines, but it's actually bad memories for us kids
really.
because they gave us government issued bread that was so hard. It's called a Nutribun. You could actually kill someone with it.
Oh
And they
Lord.
put a burger in it. When your
Ours was
bread is
good.
harder than your burger, like,
Our school lunches were really good.
yeah, ours suck. You get this entire bowl of sopas, really hot. If you're a kid, you're gonna burn yourself.
I remember there were certain days that were special, like hamburger day, pizza day. We used to get what you call it?
Mac and cheese, mashed
Yeah.
potatoes. That's pretty much a staple, right?
At my elementary school, they would
Tater
make this
tots.
thing, and I don't know if it was countywide or if it was just my school, but as a kid, they would make this thing. It was just sweet rice, but it was just white rice with, I guess, a shitload of sugar in it. That was one of my favorite fucking things ever. I loved
Tater
when they
tots
had
was one, right?
tater tots. Fucking love tater tots.
Never caught on here in the Philippines.
Well,
No wonder what it tastes like.
they got the hash bites at Burger King that are basically flat tater
It's
tots.
just hash browns, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's all it is. It's just a fucking
Bite-sized hash browns.
yeah.
It's a mutilated French fry.
My mom used to I guess it's like French fries are supposed to be potato strips deep fried, right? Like it's just a
Yeah.
strip of potato deep fried. Tater tot is actually it's almost minced, and then they're I don't know what they use to bond them together.
Lunch ladies
Never even
tears.
never really even thought about it. I don't know what they
Yeah, but
use to bind those, but it's
when you're
just small. Like if you bite into it halfway, which I probably haven't done since forever ago because it's just fucking like you said, bite size. But if you bite into it halfway and pull it apart, you can see that it's little squares of potato.
like when you're a kid, you rarely think about how things are actually made, right? You just stick it in your mouth.
Yeah, we used to have pigs in a blanket. Pigs in a blanket were so
Mm.
good, so good. And then you could get like when I was in the military, breakfast is guaranteed, right? They give you breakfast, especially when you're deployed. Breakfast is guaranteed, right? For the most part. Um, but lunch and dinner, not necessarily a guarantee. You know, you got MREs and shit. Um, but I used to eat so much at breakfast. I'm not bullshitting. I would eat like 8 hard-boiled eggs, fucking couple bowls of cereal, stick like an apple and a banana in my pocket on the way out. Fucking
Why you heading to a Gold's Gym afterwards? Like
like
eight
going
eggs?
on mission. And I remember the first few times, like those boiled eggs gave me like the worst farts ever. And I
Yeah.
was in one of my first missions, so I wasn't like I didn't really have a task, right? I was just kind of there. I wasn't driving, I wasn't gunner, I wasn't doing anything. I was just in the back of LT's Humvee, and my stomach hurt so bad, and I was farting so much that LT said
Yeah.
on the net, he's like, "Short, I swear to God, if you fart again, I will kill you myself."
You're a walking WMD.
And I was like, Roger. But I couldn't help it. My shit hurt so bad. But you know, a hard boiled egg fart is like that shit's like fucking
Dude, but eight?
dude. And the
How
Humvee,
many?
it's up armored, like the windows are up, you got the air conditioner on, it's just everybody just marinating in that shit.
At least you had the decency to actually boil it. Like Rocky actually drank 10 of them.
I don't want no fucking
Was it just 10 or 20?
Rocky.
Yeah. He
Oh,
started
he
with
had fun.
actually before running, right? He actually
Yeah,
drank eggs.
big protein boost. Let your immune
Why?
system strengthen your immune system of fighting off salmonella poisoning. It's fucking raw.
Giving yourself the disease so you have the cure.
Yeah. What's happening?
It was thought of to be good back then, back when people actually didn't think of germs.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I've never tried it. You ever tried a raw egg?
Yeah, I used to drink five of them before.
They say like your body naturally wants to reject it. Like you have to. It really takes like.
I At first I actually can't actually drink it, like until my gag reflex actually
Mhm.
strengthened. But
Yeah,
I
body's like
started using it, putting egg in soft drink first, like putting it in Coke, putting it in root beer.
root beer's
Like
probably good. Root
it's
beer's
the
got a
poor man's
strong.
eggnog. Like
Well, I
the weird
love.
thing is, like if you see the egg actually being cooked by the soft drink, you would think twice of actually putting this in your body. Like, why do I drink Coke if it can actually cook egg? What does it do to the inside of my stomach?
I seen something the other day. There was. I don't know if you and I had talked about this. I mentioned it to Julie. Somebody else, probably a student. There was a man in like the '90s, I think, or maybe the early 2000s, that sued Mountain Dew
Hmm.
and said, "I found a mouse in my Mountain Dew." And Mountain Dew beat the case. You know how they beat the case? They
They
proved
drowned.
they proved that if between the time that the can is sealed, everything's packed, it's shipped, and by the time it gets to a consumer, they proved that that mouse would have already been turned into like a gel type shit.
Yeah, everyone bought that, but never actually thought that's still poison to them.
Man, I mean, soft drinks is fucking poison anyway.
Like I think they would actually beat that case because the case was just entire the mouse just in entirety, right?
Yeah,
That was it. What was in question, not whether we're drinking muriatic acid.
right. They're like, no, that's impossible. And it's such a crazy thing that a company like that can prove that it's that what you're drinking would break down the biological. I'm talking bones, teeth,
Yeah, it's
hair.
sometimes in chemistry, I think it actually leaves behind bones. Like if something can break down a bone,
It's
like
crazy.
let's say chicken bones,
Yeah.
that's pretty similar to what's inside a mouse, right?
Uh, yeah.
So if it can break down chicken bones, what's it gonna do to your stomach?
Exactly. That's my point. Exactly. Like, and people. I mean, that's why they have back home they have what they call Mountain Dew mouth.
What's that?
That's where people, poor people, like in Kentucky or in that area, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, they drink Mountain Dew like it's fucking, the elixir of life. And it literally
Yeah,
like rots your shit out. Like you
I,
drink fucking Mountain Dew all day, every day, you end up with Mountain Dew mouth, which is just
I can pretty much
decay.
I can pretty much tell because the last logo that Mountain Dew had was what? Can you remember?
Was the what?
It was some racist shit, right? That's why it was changed.
What's that?
The last Mountain Dew logo. Have you
Oh,
seen it?
the logo. I didn't hear you say logo. Probably Mountain Dew, some country ass shit.
It's some sick shit that they actually needed to change. So I wouldn't be surprised. Those are the areas that actually love it.
Oh, here's a picture.
Like, I guess we're heading straight into the podcast now with that in mind.
Yeah, it works for me.
Well, anyway, hey everyone, how have you been? It's been so long. Life has caught up with us, so it's been so long since we actually last done a podcast. When was the last time, Chris? You weren't here the last time. It was Ryan, right?
Mm,
Just back in
last
what
year.
November last year. So
Was it last?
how has everyone been? Hopefully, people have been doing great. And yeah, welcome to this new format of the podcast where we just say anything we want. But we haven't been absent online. We've been doing stuff.
Yeah.
You might have seen us around. If you've been bored enough, you can find us.
Yeah,
But yeah,
there's another. Yeah.
and Chris, I want to bring this topic up to you. At least the first one we have for now, just to get the ball rolling. Like there has been news that came out. I guess it was yesterday. The birth rates in Japan are actually going down,
Mm,
and the government, the Tokyo government, is actually promoting dating apps. They're hoping dating apps would actually help with it. But what do you think about that? Because you've been around Japanese culture because of your work. You
yeah,
can you've pretty much been in conversations with them. Has this actually came up in any idle conversations with your students?
it has. It has.
Really?
This is actually a pretty common. It's mentioned a lot. Not that we always dive into it, but it is mentioned, in passing or whatever. Japan's birth rate is decreasing, and not only is the birth rate decreasing, it's an aging society, right? Like I think the average age it's like 90 plus or something in Japan. There's a lot of old people.
They're healthy there.
They are very healthy. I mean, everything's yeah, and it's clean. The food is not overly fried. I think they do moderate portions.
And it's a society unlike in some countries that were still able to preserve their culture, right?
Mm,
That haven't been infected by modernized world, like the way they
yeah,
process things. They've been still been doing the old ways. Like pretty much industrial areas are still separate from agriculture. They're not mixed.
yeah. The only thing that hasn't really changed is well, not hasn't changed, but the only thing that really stays the same is the societal pressure to succeed.
Yeah.
Like obviously there's a societal pressure everywhere to succeed, right? But in Japan, it's super so far so
Yeah.
much so as people unalive themselves quite often.
Yeah. In a society that demands you kill yourself, like if you fail,
Hmm.
it's pretty much a success driven country.
But yeah, I have had this conversation though, and from what I gather, they know it's an issue. Um, just no one really has a good idea of how to fix it.
I
Um,
guess it's a bit more regarding, like, we're going back to culture. Like, what is the dating scene there in Japan? Like, Sarah, like, once had a few years back interviewed. I guess people know her, Maria Ozawa. So
okay.
she actually moved here to the Philippines, and actually, I guess she was married here, but she was actually asked this question: what's the biggest difference in Japan from the Philippines when you got here? And the first
Mhm.
answer I guess she gave was actually the dating scene. Like in
Mhm.
Japan, when someone actually asks you they want to go out with you, that means you're actually going steady. In some cultures, it just means you're gonna go on a date and there's no commitment.
Right.
So you're pretty much, if you're in that society, you're pretty much given the choice of just one. Like if I'm gonna go be going out with you on a date, I'm pretty much in a relationship with you. That was the shock to her
That's
when
an,
she actually came here. Like suddenly my options are suddenly open. I can pick and choose whoever I want. I can date people. I have a much open world when it comes to understanding men. Like I think that's the biggest thing there in Japan when it comes to the understanding between male and the female, because they rarely get to interact unless it was in school and the office spaces.
right.
And once you try to know someone, like know them intimately, you're already dumped into a commitment that without any without any context of what you're getting yourself into.
Right. Yeah. True. Very true. Yeah, I've heard that, but I've also heard that there are back to the dating apps. Um, there are two types of dating apps in Japan. One, if you're serious.
Yeah.
One, if you're looking for something casual. So, like, if you're
So it already
not
exists.
interested in, yeah, if you're not interested in dating for marriage, then you're on the other one.
That's super interesting. Like
Hmm.
in terms of the culture, like I pretty much guess. That's a no-no for them.
Well, I think their culture is changing constantly. Obviously,
But I
most
guess
cultures are.
not fast enough, right?
Yeah, I also was told that another idea that's been floated in Japan. I don't know if it's government level or just um, within communities or whatever was actually making it easier for, or maybe not even making it just making it easier, but giving incentives for immigration
Hmm.
so that you end up you're going to have more it's going to boost the population, but you're also like watering down the gene pool.
Hmm. Like we've seen a surge of expats going to Japan recently, right?
Hmm.
Seen a lot of, I guess a lot of Americans actually moved there. And I know it's derogatory to say, but I think it's part of weeb culture also because there has been a surge of people actually interested in Japanese culture,
Hmm.
especially particularly through anime, right? Anime gaming. I think streaming is really big there in Japan. And I don't know regarding the cost of living, whether it's actually much cheaper than other Asian countries. That's why they
Um,
chose it there.
I know for the actually since the Russia Ukraine thing kicked off and like the and time when global inflation kind of went up, the yen has been struggling for 2 years now, 2.5 years, and
Well,
they're
that's a
seeing an influx of not only tourists but international shoppers,
yeah,
where
but I
basically
guess
you go there and you get more bang for your buck in Japan, especially if you're close by Korea, Singapore, Philippines, those places. Like people are going there just for the shopping. Australia, New Zealand.
yeah, but I think a couple of years back there has been news that there are men there in Japan that have been living in the 2D world that much prefer 2D women. Have you heard about that?
I have not.
Like there have been dating back then, but it's mostly in their phones or on their computers. Like they'd much rather prefer gaming girls, meaning anime girls in games
So you
as a
mean real
girlfriend.
people that
No,
have
not necessarily real people. These are called in their terms waifus. Have you heard
their
of that
why?
term?
I have heard of that. Where did I hear that?
You
Yeah, I
usually
have heard
find
that.
this in gotcha games. Like some of them actually just prefer like this is a country where we hear where people are actually married to holograms. Like that's I think it's no longer past us to think that they are having declining birth rates since the men are not actually motivated to actually find a real person.
Mm,
That's why I mentioned maybe because it's the culture that men are not actually uh aggressive when it comes to seeking relationships or
mhm.
commitments, right? Because for them it's a one person policy.
Well, I have noticed. I do have several students who are what most would consider dating for marriage age, right? Late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah,
Um, and obviously we've talked about, like I said, this topic comes up a lot. Uh, and they just have no interest in having a family. Like they want to have a successful career, and that's really their only focus when it comes to like, do you want a husband and kids? Not that I ask them that,
yeah,
if it comes up, um, it's just not something that they're interested in. It's much more professionally based for the like I said, late 20 something, early 30 something that I've encountered. Not all of them, but there is a significant amount, I think, that a noticeable amount.
yeah. There are parallels, I guess, to some places in the world. Like I think this mostly plagues Asia. I think it's because of the cultural difference.
Mm,
Like if you go to places like when you think about China, there are these things called leftover ladies. Like
Mm,
ladies, I guess, over the age of 30 that haven't married yet. Some of them actually migrated, I guess. Someone in the audience actually correct me if I'm wrong, but in Canada, like these are rich, successful women who can't actually find men in China just because they are successful,
right.
and they are women. Like that's I think it's the major factor there. Like I've seen a documentary regarding this where where a bunch of women over 30, a lot of them successful in their field, you would be envious of what they have,
Mm.
are doing speed dating with regular Joes just to find husbands. Like
There's a
the bar was so low, I could have qualified. Like
there's a I seen this thing on social media where like people in China go. I'm trying to remember it exactly. It seems like it was a park, and it's kind of just it's like a speed dating thing where just all these singles gather in this one area and they just kind of mingle. It was outside. They just kind of
yeah,
mingle with each other, and they're looking for. They're not looking for a date. They're looking for
yeah,
like like the question isn't, hey, what's your favorite color? Do you like sci-fi movies? The question is, how many kids do you want? Where do you want to live? Like these
yeah.
these marriage questions off rip.
Yeah, do you think an app would actually help Japan regarding this? Like
I
they
mean,
already have like they have something called Gokon, which is actually just group dating. Do you think an app would actually help out people?
it can't hurt, right? Connect more people. At least then you can kind of put yourself out there, right? Like, but I mean, I had one student a few years ago um, that brought up a very interesting point, and he is was I don't know if he still is. Like I said, this was a couple years ago. Um, he worked overseas in South America somewhere. He was engineering or something, and he had a conspiracy theory.
Mm,
And this, and I love a good conspiracy theory, right? Like I'm
yeah.
all about it because
Please
sometimes
don't
they're not. Sometimes they
please
come
don't
true,
tell me
right?
it's Godzilla's fault again. Like
Yeah. Apparently, when Godzilla shot that big blue blink beam of it, just
I knew it.
right. Yeah. No. He said that Japan is a oh shit, what's the word he used? It's like a global experiment. Mm. But it
That's an
gets better.
understatement.
It gets better. He said, and his point was like, because one, it's an island nation, right? So like the
Mm,
outside interference can be mitigated, right, through government or whatever. Like immigration is not huge, to come and live in Japan, right? Like interracial um, marriages and things aren't probably as high as in other parts of the world. Um, they import like 60 or no, they I don't know. I'm not going to look it up, but it's an incredibly high number or percentage of their food they actually import.
you would think after what happened, they would import food.
I mean, you would imagine like self-sustaining food supply would be a nation's number one like priority, right? Like, but they
Yeah.
become so globalized that a large majority of their food is imported. It's 80 something. I don't know. It's crazy. Like 78. I don't know. It's way up there. It's way above 50.
Yeah.
And uh, the birth rate was somehow, God, I wish I could remember this verbatim, but it's been so long ago. But it really stuck out to me because I was like,
Yeah.
uh, the birth rate was, or the decrease in the birth rate was kind of manufactured by uh, like societal norms and things, right? Like it was influenced,
Yeah.
and the fact that they can keep people alive for so long, it's all part of this experiment, right? Because the point was like, there's no other country in the world that's like this. Like it's only happening in Japan. He's like, and now what are they doing? They're tanking the yen to see what
Mhm.
happens. What happens if the society grows old, if the birth rate goes low, you tank the currency. So it's just like an experiment, and I just thought it was really interesting.
You know, what's funny about this is like, what is it? GNP that actually is part of the population, or GDP? Is GNP right?
Global, is it gross national
National,
product?
like that's part of the population, right? It's part of services
Hmm.
minus foreign. Like the thing about this is with the declining birth rate in Japan, their GNP is still growing. Like we
Hmm.
might have a few, but we have the best. I think
Right.
that's the underlying
Yeah.
uh factor here.
And then they brought. Oh, another point he made was they brought in the Olympics during the pandemic. He was like, "What is this?" He's like, "Why would you do
Japan.
that?" Yeah. But would an app solve it? No. Will it put a dent in it? Maybe not. Will it
Like,
scratch the surface?
okay,
Maybe.
a much bigger question to you is, would a sudden surge in dating app technically, okay, maybe suddenly change Japanese culture when it comes to how they view relationships when it comes to men and women?
Uh, Again, I can only speak from secondhand information, right? But pretty good it's a pretty good stockpile of secondhand information. I mean, I talk to
Because
five or
Tinder
six Japanese people a day, honestly.
Tinder actually changed the landscape when it comes to Western culture and how men and women interact, on how
Um,
quickly relationships actually start and end.
there has been a shift as far as the male female role in relationships. There has been a shift. Like my
Yeah,
older students say, my older female students say, like their husband never cooks. He goes to work, he comes home. Like, and even if she works, she goes to work, she comes home, and she still does everything in the house. Um, but my younger students who are married, um, I just had a conversation the other day. Like her husband cooks all the time, and then I
yeah.
have even younger college age students, males, that a lot of them, I say, hey, what's your hobbies? That type of thing. And a lot of them is like, I love to bake, I love to cook. So there's a definitely a shift happening. Maybe not a shift. There's a balancing happening where men are like, it's not a big deal to cook. You know what I'm saying? Like,
In terms of gender, particularly in Japan, we rarely get to hear any news regarding gender roles there. Right?
mm,
It seems like it's one of those countries that gender roles are specifically are defined completely. It
they have
hasn't
been for a
changed,
long time.
right? It hasn't changed for a long time.
Yeah.
Unlike other cultures where they try to shift
Hmm.
responsibilities with each other,
Yeah.
like this has been consistent.
Yeah. I've been asked several times because they know that I live in Manila and things. And they ask like, and they also have teachers, right? From the, English teachers,
Yeah.
English tutors from here. A majority of them are female. And there's a couple students that the gist of the observation that they had was um, the women in the Philippines seem to be a little more independent and kind of like go-getters
Yeah.
versus the women in Japan, even when married. Like
You
the
think
Filipino women don't take a back seat just because they're married. It's like, no, I got to make this money. Like we're doing things. Where in Japan, if you get married, kind of your husband's career, your husband's thing kind of takes center stage, and
yeah.
your career or whatever is secondary.
And I guess in a sense we could actually look at, has men's taste there in Japan actually changed over the past couple of decades? Like I said, there was a culture where 2D waifus or 2D female characters have been sought after by the men there,
Mm,
and they much prefer living in a 2D world rather than in a 3D setting like the real world. Like,
mm,
has the men's perception of what a woman is, what an ideal mate is, actually changed because influences of anime, manga, or the games that they play, and how women are actually portrayed there? Like, there's an
probably.
illusion that in gaming or in anime, women are sometimes sweet, very
Yeah.
attentive, sometimes kawaii, cute. Like when they go out in the real world, they find out that it's a mixed bag of these things. Like
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
one character is just that character. She's
Right.
completely complex. So has
Yeah.
that complexity actually changed men's degree of comfort when it comes to interacting with the opposite sex? I think that's also a factor, because if you're completely exposed to this culture, like anime and such, this is the only reference you have of interacting with a woman.
Mm.
I know you go to school, but then again, like I said, and the culture between male and female students there, I guess, are different.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would say for sure that that plays a role. Especially, if you're the younger generation, right? And this is what you know as you grow up. And I mean, but I think we can say that for technology, whether it be, something as simple as animation or social media, because I think globally we're seeing people that don't know how to be content,
Yeah,
right? Because if you feel like because of social media, prior to the internet, prior to social media, your circle was fucking small, right?
yeah,
School, neighborhood, work. If you had family that lived out of town, maybe you could meet someone, from that area or something. But for the most part, your pool was very small.
yeah,
And then, internet and social media comes along, and now you're in touch with like people from all over the world, and all of a sudden, men and women, it's like, oh, I have so many more options. Why would I settle for my high school sweetheart when there's this really handsome guy in Azerbaijan, right?
yeah.
Like it's create, the pool's a lot larger, but that basically makes people's willingness to, and I'll use air quotes, settle down,
Yeah.
a lot less, right? It's like I don't want to, like, why would I look at this beautiful person that, da, 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 da. Whereas before it's like, what do you see on TV? You don't have a chance with that. So
So
I
like
guess it's
when,
like a perfect storm, right? It's a perfect storm kind of in Japan. Um, the women want to be more independent. They
yeah,
want to be successful in their own right. They don't want to be in a successful man's kitchen, all the time, right?
yeah,
The males maybe have a distorted view because of pop culture.
yeah,
And I think the fact that what you mentioned a minute ago about there's not really a dating scene, it's more of a, I don't even know what you call it. Not really a dating scene. It's more of a like a matchmaking constantly, right? It's not like,
it feels
for
like
long term.
I feels like I think particularly in Asian culture, getting into a relationship feels more like you are pressured into it just because it's the end goal of every human being to be married,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
And I
Whether
think
it's
people are
be
worried like, what if it doesn't get better and I end up alone? Like this may be as good as it gets.
the problem right now is even if you end up alone, there's so much things for you to do.
Yeah.
It suddenly becomes an option, unlike before. Like I do understand now why people sometimes tend to hold off marriage and starting a family, because there's so much for you to do with your life now, even in your 30s, that weren't actually available back then,
Yeah.
right?
Right, right, right.
So
And then something we haven't really touched on is in Asian culture, and I'm by no means an expert, but I feel like I have a pretty good idea. A lot of times it young people don't pursue someone that maybe they feel they have a strong connection with because it's in the end it's all about parent approval,
Yeah.
and it's you're going to feel like, oh, my dad's not going to like this guy or my mom's not going to like this girl, and then you don't push through. Whereas in Western culture, it's common that your wife doesn't like your in-laws, right? Like, or you don't like, that's just how it is.
It's basically an episode of a sitcom, right? So,
Yeah, every day. Yeah. And I've learned here when dating or whatever, um, it really is it really the threshold of like we're hanging out and having fun and this
yeah.
is serious is when you actually meet the parents
Mm,
because well, you can't bring like everybody you hang out with home, right? Because your mom's gonna be
yeah.
like, what you end up, yeah. But yeah,
Like,
I think that's also plays in, and I think in Japan maybe because of the patriarchal structure, um, and not to be offensive or anything, but as a child, the patriarchal structure, the mother is adjacent, right?
yeah.
So just the thought of do I bring this guy home is enough to deter anybody from dating.
Yeah. There is that fear of acceptance, right?
Yeah,
And there's also that fear that who I even date would actually reflect on me,
also true.
right?
Yeah,
And
I
my
mean, there's
family.
social status.
There is that. I was wondering, is that unique to just Asians to think that way? Like, how does this actually, how will my relationship actually affect my family rather than how will it affect me down the line?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's prominent in Asia, but maybe not so much in the US. I think in the US, it's more of a like, people may hate me for this, but it's true. I think like
People may already hate you before you even said anything.
probably, yeah. But let's
Go
just
ahead.
add on. The materialistic side of Western culture, where like the guy's great looking, he's in shape, great personality, sense of humor,
It,
no money, might as well be headless with, like if you, it doesn't matter. If you don't have money, then you're not going to get
like,
any type of love, period.
speaking of very topical, like an example of that is what we have here in the Philippines, where a celebrity actually called out someone for harassing a female guest on their show just because he it's
I
he's
think I know
gay.
what you're talking
So
about.
yeah,
I've
so
seen this.
you've seen that, like
Yeah.
there,
She's like, you
very
can't do
argument
that.
was his very argument was that he thought that the woman felt harassed, and the woman actually
Hmm.
came out like, no, I didn't actually feel that.
Hmm.
Like there's an argument that when someone is not that pleasing in appearance, you think of it as harassment. But if it's Leonardo DiCaprio, you think it's charming,
Oh, there's a saying, there's a thin line between harassment and flirting, and it all
yeah,
depends on what you look like.
right? And this personality actually built her career going after how people looks, not actually
Yeah.
considering looking at the mirror herself or
Yeah,
himself
yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
I've seen that. Yeah.
you've seen that.
Yeah.
So it is prescient that you actually mentioned that part. Like there are certain aspects when it comes to, I guess, let's go back to Japan. Like there maybe women have a much more ideal sense of the men that they want to be with.
Right. And
There are influences regarding it. Like the dating scene just completely shift when the world suddenly decided to actually be just one when it comes to
mm,
their culture, just because of the presence of the internet.
yeah. I mean, all of us can sit right now and say the 10 or 12 or 15 things that we want in a partner, right? Of
Yeah.
course, intelligent, good looking, healthy, smart, or funny, um, kind, those we can do this all day. But I guarantee you that 99% of us will never find that image that we have of a perfect person because no one is perfect, right? Like I just watched a movie earlier today and I appreciated the line where she was like, "We're all fucked up, so you just have to find somebody that matches your fucked upness."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's just how it is. So if you have this idea because of social media or these cartoons or games or whatever, uh, I mean, you're just gonna be sitting on the train by yourself your
Yeah.
whole life because that doesn't exist.
Yeah, let's be fair here. We've been harping on the men. Let's go to the women's side. There is a host culture there in Japan. I think everyone there who lives in Japan would agree that some women actually pay these host clubs money just not to be in a relationship with them, but to spend time with them because these are their ideal men,
Mm.
right? I think there was a documentary a while back that I watched regarding the richest host in Japan and how he's actually living and why women are actually giving him money. Like it's because they see that their ideal man in him, and it's just that it's the chase for them that's actually fun.
Yeah, there is a. I mean, if you think about it, right? If you're a successful woman, then you don't want to. I think there's a biological difference, and again, we're maybe stepping into
Yeah,
controversial
like
territory
I said,
here.
before you even actually talk, like people might have hated us before. Like,
Yeah,
let's just add fuel to the fire.
I think men are more willing to work hard, become famous, or not famous, become successful, become wealthy, and then share what they've accomplished with someone they find attractive, right? Which is why you see 40, 50-year-old men with
Yeah,
20-something-year-old women, right? But, and, but women, I don't think a woman that works her ass off, and whether the amount of effort is different or not is neither here nor there. I just, biologically, I don't think women are willing to share what they've accomplished with someone who hasn't accomplished the same or more. Whereas a man, like, I don't give a shit
yeah,
as
because
long as
there
she's
has
hot.
been, I think there has been a built-in perception when it comes to men. Like this is us, we should be in control,
Mm,
and if someone wants to take over, go ahead.
yeah, please be my guest. I've been doing this for years. I need somebody to come in and, yeah, shift change or something.
So yeah, in a sense, hopefully this the government stuff actually does this right and they actually makes a positive change. But from what I'm seeing from their economy right now, I don't think there should be any worry regarding the progress of their country. But yeah, their GNP is really strong. I guess it's just a societal thing that they think that they're in. Do they think are in danger of being extinct
There
if we
is some
keep not
concern.
suddenly not stopping?
I think there is some, like we've talked about, we've talked about this kind of in a lighthearted way. Um, will it help? Because it doesn't really, but I think there is a genuine concern amongst, the general population. Uh, so it is something that people think about and worry about. More so for um, the main problem I think that they talk about is the aging workforce, and there's no one to replace it.
Hmm.
So then you start talking about social security, and
Yeah,
there's
but
not
then
enough people.
we have to dive into. Yeah, this is a huge ocean. Like, if the aging workforce is a concern, we have to dive in. What are the works available right now,
Mm.
right? So,
But,
and
but I mean,
it's
it could
another.
also
I
be
think it's
like
another discussion. Like, what
it
are the
could also be
availabilities
like
of the work?
it could also be like manifest destiny, right? Like AI is booming.
Yeah.
So we're not going to need that many workers. Maybe Japan is like, all right, fuck it. We just got
Yes.
like
The first mention of AI in this podcast.
an hour in.
Congratulations for inaugurating it. This is gonna be a slippery slope for us. Oh
Yeah.
no.
But yeah, nonetheless, I don't know. We'll see. I guess we're young enough to actually watch it play out to see what happens if they can make some shifts or something.
Yeah, people, youngsters in Japan, young or old, if you're in the dating scene there, please tell us what do you think about us. Whether we got something wrong, please school us. Like, we love to
Yeah,
be educated.
for sure, for sure. Yeah.
So I've watched this show lately, just to shift gears a bit
Okay.
lighthearted one. Like, this is an old one. I guess it was last year. It's called Late Night with the Devil. Have you watched it?
I have not.
Late Night with the Devil. Forgot who's the actor in it. I think I've seen him somewhere.
Oh, this is
Have you?
new. This is last year. Oh, see, I don't fuck with horror movies.
You don't?
Nope.
You squeamish?
Yeah, it just my imagination is too vivid. Like I start having dreams, and I'd be afraid of like what's behind my shower curtain. Like it really does. Yeah, it really.
You're gonna be fun to mess with during Halloween.
Oh man, it's just I don't know. I think I'm too cerebral, man. Not to say that other people aren't, but it really does. It really does get to me. It's
Like, if
the
if you believe in aliens, I think you would believe in ghosts, right?
I have no reason not to. Is the thing.
Right? See, I think that's the reason where you feel uncomfortable with these kinds of films.
Actually, oh man, this is serendipitous. Maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so I've had this idea for years, right? Because I want to know, like I no, I at least want a chance to be proven one way or another. So I've had this idea, man, and I can never get anybody to go along with me on it.
Tell
There's a
me.
shitload of haunted places in the Philippines, right? Like there's a bunch, hotels and forests and all these fucking crazy places. Um, right here in Luzon, there's a bunch, and I have wanted to for years to do like I need a videographer. I imagine a crew of three because just two is not enough. I need like me and two other
You
people,
you
somebody to
need
film.
you need a videographer, sound guy, someone to sacrifice in case.
Yeah, a goat maybe,
Go.
a goat herder. So we need another guy. But
Yeah.
I really want to go and like because I watch these things on YouTube. I watch them on TV.
Like the ghost
No,
hunters.
it's never what it should be. There's always some, oh, there was a bump, but we can't prove anything. Or, oh, did you hear that noise? And then fucking that, or, oh, there's some noise on this fucking walkie-talkie. It sounded like it said Barbara or whatever. Who's Barbara?
Like,
Like
you
there's never a conclusion. I
like,
want
what
to,
was it? Like, there was a series in BuzzFeed like that, right? What was it
well, there's been
called?
so many and they're always so inconclusive. I want, even if just for myself, the audience can say whatever they want to say. I want to go spend 2 days in a haunted hotel.
Pretty
You know
much
what I
go
mean?
to anywhere in Manila.
Film the whole thing. Like I want to do this, and the reason I said that this may be because this might be some PSM type
Yeah.
material. You know what I'm saying? Like if we could sneak away for 2 or 3 days and do
Mm,
this.
like, Sarah would love that. Like, she's much more into the occult than me. Like,
Okay.
she would be more into it. It's a fun notion. Like, I get what you're saying, that the shows that have been done about it feel incomplete, but I guess that's part of that's part of their plot armor when it comes to calling them on their BS. Like, We
Yeah.
left enough areas or loopholes here for you to actually think this is genuine. Like you
Right.
can actually question us regarding this. Like we're leaving a bunch of questions for you to answer for yourself. Like, is this real? Is this bump a spirit or something? Did the temperature actually change because just someone actually just turned up the AC? Like
Yeah.
those type
Yeah.
of things.
Is there a window open? Like, yeah, yeah. But I want to, like I said, it may not be definitive, but it would be definitive for me.
You want the genuine experience, like you, just a couple of people, camera,
I
stay there 24 hours, spend the night.
want to
That's
know.
it.
I want to know. And I could promise if this happens and there would be no scripts, there would be no playing it up for the camera. Like if it's a boring 2 days, then that's just going to be a boring ass video that's uploaded to
I don't
YouTube.
think we're gonna be needing a script or doing a podcast. We're so lazy we can't actually write an intro.
Fucking intro. And intros are yeah,
I've been
outdated.
doing that for what, for 4 months now.
Mm, yeah, but yeah, man, that's really something I want to do, and I will make it happen. I just need some more balls myself and a couple more people
Yeah,
with the
it could be fun. Like, bring your most hated cousin.
same.
We all know what role he is gonna
Yeah,
play.
I feel
Yeah,
like I feel like it could happen if ever.
yes. So going back to the entire late night with the devil thing, I'm surprised you haven't watched it. I
Well, I'm
feel like
sorry.
it's
Yeah, I
been up and
completely
around.
hijacked your topic. My
No
bad.
worries, no worries. No worries. I've watched it and seen the format. This show was actually based in the 1970s.
Hmm.
I think it was set in 1977. Like it was a talk show host. It reminded me, apart from the paranormal that's actually injected here, it actually reminds me of the current landscape of talk shows there in the U.S. now. Like before, it was actually more built towards entertainment, but then there was a sudden shift. Like what happened? Like it
So is it?
turned men, it turned more into a monologue mill.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they become politicized. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Uh,
What's the
I was a
format
big
that you
late
can
night guy.
remember? Well, what can you remember regarding talk shows, as much as it was entertainment for you back there in the U.S.?
I'm not old enough to have really been able to enjoy Johnny Carson.
Yeah,
Um, Apparently, he's the GOAT, right? Like he was the greatest, kind of the
it
pioneer
was
of the
it
whole
was
thing.
Jack Parr, right?
Yeah,
And Johnny Carson.
yeah. And then, but I did get in on Leno and Letterman, which were competing.
Yeah,
Um, I I preferred Letterman
yeah.
as a teenager. I preferred
Should have
Letterman.
should have gotten the Late Show.
Yeah,
I still hold that opinion up to this day. He should have
yeah, oh
gotten
yeah,
the job.
yeah. Leno's shit was good. I mean, it's the Tonight Show. That's the
Yeah,
original. Um, then Conan, of course, would come after, and then Craig Ferguson,
yeah.
one of the best, one of the best. And then, but
He
there
was
was someone before
he
Craig
was so
Ferguson.
underrated back at that time.
Yeah. Oh God, it was the best entertainment. Just him and that talking fucking skeleton robot thing he had.
As far as talk show hosts go, like he was the most interested in guests rather than
Mhm.
what they were promoting.
Yeah.
And in a weird psychological way, the guests tend to forget what they were trying to promote in that
Mm.
show, right?
Yeah. It was a lot of I mean it's on at what midnight or something, so the viewership was close to nothing, I'm sure, compared to a Letterman or a Leno. So you kind of had more free reign, right, to do whatever you
Yeah,
wanted. Craig Kilborn was before Craig Ferguson.
yeah.
Yeah, or his predecessor, not like time wise, but his predecessor. And but I remember, man, like before Jimmy Kimmel, and actually the Daily Show, I think on Comedy Central was the shift. I feel like was a strong shift to the political direction when it comes to late show to late night television. I mean, it all started with was it Jon Stewart? Who did the Daily Show
John,
first?
it wasn't Jon Stewart, it was someone else. He was actually just a replacement, and we tend to forget who he is. I
Yeah,
apologize if I don't know your name, but yeah, there was someone else before him.
before
It was
Jon Stewart,
just
right?
Jon Stewart was just so genuine with the fact that he knows he's not a reporter.
Mm.
He's actually doing these news and
I
doing
watched.
it much better than network television.
Yeah,
He's on cable, right?
yeah,
Like people took a show from a network, a cable channel called Comedy Central,
yeah,
and sees that as fact.
yeah. Well, there was a lot of satire, and that's where what's his face now? Super cringe guy. What's his name? Not the South African guy. What's his name?
Was it
Jesus, I'm
mm,
blanking on all
not
these
John
names.
Oliver, right?
No, not John Oliver. The other one.
There are lots of them.
Stephen Colbert.
Oh, Colbert.
Yeah, Colbert. Yeah, he was like he had I think he had um a small role on the late or on damn,
Yeah,
I'm blanking.
he started with as a correspondent for the Daily Show, but then he
Correspondent, that's
transitioned
part
to
of
his own show, which was I forgot the
the
title of the
Colbert
show that
Report.
Colbert Report. But he was actually portraying a character back then that he was actually a Republican, a right wing
Yeah,
nut, right?
yep.
Just to be not derogatory, but actually to be exactly the character that he was actually trying to portray.
Yeah,
The issue with that is when he transitioned to pick up the baton from was it Letterman? It's Letterman, right?
yeah.
He had the unfortunate task of actually reverting to his true self, which is actually a Democrat, which actually looked so disingenuous when you were not aware if you are not aware that he was actually portraying a character back then.
Well, I don't want to get too deep, too into the weeds on this one, but I don't think half of these guys believe the shit that they say. I think sponsors, donors, producers, they want this narrative pushed. I really that's why you didn't see Jimmy Fallon wasn't political for a long time.
It wasn't. It was
Way after
I think
way
he was
after
actually
Kimmel.
demanded to actually compete with other hosts, but
Yeah.
he's not actually that good when it comes to monologues.
I don't think he cares really about
He doesn't. He just
politics and
wants
things.
to do a song and dance. Like I call him Budget Set McFarlane. So that's
But yeah,
basically
you're
his
right though.
MO.
He just wants to entertain. Like he
He's
doesn't
more
have
of an
an
entertainer.
agenda.
Well, I never actually knew him when it comes to SNL.
Mhm.
I first saw him as just not necessarily a movie star, but an actor because I first found out about him in the movie. What I think it was Taxi Driver or Taxi or
Taxi.
something
Okay. Yeah,
regarding a
with
taxi.
Queen Latifah.
Latifah, like
Uh
the
what
only
was
reason why I actually watched was Queen Latifah. Like,
yeah. I think that was called Taxi. Taxi something.
and even in that film, he was actually singing to be able to drive, right? So he
Yeah.
pretty much wishes to be a singer
Oh
or
yeah, I mean
a
he's uber
variety
talented.
entertainer. He tries to inject it every chance he gets. That's why I don't I don't like him as a host because he makes everything all about himself.
I haven't watched
Even
late night television since Conan, I guess. Since Conan was, screwed over or whatever you want to call it. I kind of
and Conan was different among all the late night hosts. Like his format, I think, is in part uh influenced more by Letterman,
mm,
but the entirety of the humor was mostly because of him.
yeah,
I guess that's why people actually didn't like it at first.
right. And I tried to like Jimmy Kimmel, but he's just the biggest hypocrite. Like, I mean, he went from
The Man Show.
girls jumping on trampolines
Yeah,
and blackface Shaq
yeah.
to, you're all misogynist and racist except for us. Like, it's just and I understand, you do what you can when you're coming up, but
You
don't.
can't be getting up here and actually preaching to people after all that you've done. Like it's not just a short stint for him. It was his
Right.
show,
Yeah,
but he wasn't a guest.
right. And no one else from that show has made that shift. You know what I'm saying? Adam Carolla, still the same
Yeah,
old guy.
Joe Rogan still the same.
Joe Rogan, still the same. Jimmy Kimmel's the only one that's like,
Have,
oh,
have we
no.
seen them hang out again? By the way,
Uh, Rogan and Carolla, I'm sure, yeah. But I think Jimmy's
Kimmel
kind
and has Kimmel
of,
been a guest in Rogan? He hasn't yet, right?
probably not.
Oh, wow. If you think about it,
Why?
how many
Yeah,
years has it been, right?
yeah.
The Joe
20 at
Rogan
least, or
experience,
more, 25 or 30 maybe.
and he hasn't been on the show.
Not that I know of.
Why wasn't this? Weren't people actually speculating on this?
I think it's pretty obvious. I think Kimmel's a Hollywood suckbag and Joe Rogan.
He's now, I
Like,
guess, owned by Disney, right? Disney doesn't want
yeah,
anything from his past to actually be dragged out.
right.
That's the reason why they get these exclusives. Like for me, when it comes to the talk show host, like the Fallon is pretty much the cringe one. Kimmel is pretty much the corporate one. Conan was the only real one for me.
I like
Who's
Conan.
actually doing
Even
it?
now, Conan Needs a Friend is one of my favorite podcasts. That episode of Hot Ones, legendary. That shit was crazy.
I was half hoping that Andy was actually there when that happened.
Yeah, Andy doesn't have the body shape that looks like he could handle a lot of spice. Like, I feel like he would be the gas man from Dumb and Dumber had he had like a spicy wing. He would be like,
But yeah, at least Conan actually found a way to actually continue the talk show thing with his podcast, right?
mm,
Like
yeah,
it was actually a perfect platform for him. Like I sometimes I feel like when his show on TBS actually started, like he was given what an hour, then they dropped it to 30 minutes. I feel like the
mm,
30 minute stuff was actually just too short.
yeah,
No, honestly, I know he feels that is actually perfect. It's a sweet
mm,
spot, but I think it was actually just too short.
right.
And I guess when it comes to competition, like there's a lot of planning going into it. Like cable is pretty much on the way out now due to streaming.
I was just thinking that there's not a other than Rhett and Link. I don't think there's a variety type show on YouTube. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
because these things actually cost money now. The only
hmm,
channel that I've seen doing this that are not destroying expensive cars, giving away exorbitant amount of money is Smosh. And
yeah,
they're not
Smosh.
back doing and they did mention like sketch comedy for us was very expensive. Like uh, just doing costumes, doing scripts, going on
Mhm,
locations and filming. And if we're just gonna be getting what, let's say 5 million views on it or three
mhm.
million for that day, that wouldn't cut the expense.
No, not even
Right?
close.
You're gonna have to pay people for that day.
Yeah.
So I guess the famous sketch artists on YouTube before, like Ryan Higa, actually left right
Mhm.
abruptly during the pandemic, then suddenly switched to Twitch. That's why I think all these YouTubers that have done sketch comedies before don't see any value in it just because of the expense that it actually takes.
Right.
And switches to podcasting. Like I'm surprised that Smosh is actually doing sketch comedy now.
I can't really get into Smosh. I know it's the people.
Because he grew up. That's the
I
thing.
guess.
Their entire brand of humor, I guess, and I still watch them from time to time. Their brand of humor was the silly back then when we were actually teenagers. Like that's
Mhm.
their entire brand that they can't actually let go. and I don't fault them for it.
Right,
At
right.
least they're still be remaining true to their identity. They try to be edgy, yeah, like they try to be. I think there's a dark time for them. They tried to be edgy at one point, but it never actually caught on. Like people still think of them as an audience for kids.
Right.
So yeah,
I
going
mean,
back to the late night thing, like I guess the entire ship when it comes to the politics in it, like actually happened during the course of Trump because material was so easy to come by.
I don't know. I was thinking about this actually just the other day. One of my favorite skits, I don't know, skit bit from Letterman
Was
was
it Clinton?
no, was what was it? Famous? Was it historical? What is it?
Okay, I'm gonna take back what I said now. I think the most valuable shift for the late night show in the US was actually September 11th.
Okay, yeah, maybe. Uh,
Like I think that was a time when
oh God, I can't believe I missed it. It was the segment on Letterman was, and you can find these on YouTube,
yeah.
was great moments in presidential speeches. And the snippet would be like it was like John F. Kennedy, you know what fear can do for you or whatever. And
This is the top 10.
no, it was just a compilation of George W. Bush fuck ups, and there was a lot of them. And it was such I really enjoyed that. And but I guess presidents per se were always a target, right? Because I mean, yeah, that's a beauty of the United States, right? You can make fun of the president, and he's not going to have you killed.
Yeah.
Right? You try this shit in you know the Middle East, and next thing you know, you're you know you've been disappeared. Um, but that's the first that I really remember. Of course, Clinton. I mean, I'm sure there were some monologue jokes, but this was the first that I remember of like a directed segment of making fun of the president. But I mean, it's gold though. Like he was just giving it every speech was gold. There was always some.
Yeah.
Will Ferrell ran with the whole thing.
Yeah. It's usually some things that happen in pop culture, but a lot of things happened back in the 90s when it comes to politics that actually comedians can actually make fun of.
Right.
Well, I guess we can continue this discussion on tomorrow's episode, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Or on another episode. I
Yeah,
think
and the
this is a good
next.
topic to actually continue.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We can always do a part two. That's not a problem.
Yeah. So to our audience, thank you for actually again joining us. You might see us from time to time, and we will be having an exclusive this coming week, an exclusive review of a tech product. So please watch out for it. And on behalf of my co-host Christopher Anthony Short, we'll see you in the next episode.